Mecca is missing. Torpedo 4. The Quran. Why the Quran is not consistent with Mecca as the holy city. Let's look at some fundamentals. Firstly, although the Quran frequently mentions the holy city, it names Mecca only once. That's in chapter 48:24. Why should this be so if Mecca was indeed the holy city? Also, the text of the Quran is like a preacher preaching to an audience, and the preacher talks about things as if the audience is familiar with them. For example, the Quran talks about farming, raising cattle, growing olives, and even seafaring. And the Quran discusses Christian and Jewish traditions and doctrines in detail. The problem is that for the 7th century Hijaz, that is Mecca, Medina, or the surrounding areas, A, there is no evidence from the 7th century of any farming, olive growing, or seafaring in these areas, and B, there is no archaeological evidence of any Christian or Jewish presence in the Hijaz, even though Christianity was present in North and South Arabia. Also, the Quran has more than 300 words taken from other languages such as Aramaic, Hebrew, and Ethiopic that would be unknown to the Bedouin tribes of Mecca and Medina, but they would have been known by people in North Arabia and Jordan. Next, the Standard Islamic narrative makes a number of claims about the holy city. Let's compare these claims to the Mecca of Saudi Arabia. And if they don't stack up, then Mecca cannot have been the original holy city. Now, according to the Sindh, the holy city had a large valley with a stream, but Mecca has no valley or stream, so the holy city is unlikely to have been Mecca. The holy city had high mountains close to the Kaaba. For Mecca, the nearest mountains are 3 kilometers away, so again, unlikely to have been Mecca. The holy city had 2 mountains called Safa and Marwa separated by a valley. But in Mecca, these are small hillocks enclosed in the mosque complex, and Safa is only 8 meters tall, so again, unlikely to have been Mecca. The Sindh says that the holy city had a high side and a low side with a road from either side. But Mecca is in a large, flat, open area that can be approached from many sides, so again, unlikely to refer to Mecca. The holy city had a back way into the city via a narrow pass through canyons, but Mecca can be approached from many sides and there is no narrow pass, so again, unlikely to refer to Mecca. And the Sindh says that the holy city had grass, clay, loam, and trees. But Mecca averages only 110 millimeters of rain all year. There's no evidence that any of these were found in 7th century Mecca. So again, this is unlikely to be a reference to Mecca. What about the people around the holy city? Because the Quran frequently refers to people groups in a way that suggests that the audience was quite familiar with these peoples. They are the people of Ad, the people of Midian, and the people of Tamud. So who were these people? The people of Ad are the people of Uz or the Edomites who lived in southern Jordan, the red area on the map. The people of Midian are the Midianites referred to in the Bible. They also lived in Jordan, the green arrow. And the people of Tamud were the Nabateans. They were traders active throughout the Middle East, but their political and religious centers were in southern Jordan and North Arabia, such as Petra. Note that all 3 peoples lived more than 1,000 kilometers away from Mecca. So why would the preacher make such a big deal of people so far away? The audience would not have known what he was talking about. Remember, there was no internet, Facebook, or Instagram back then. If, however, the Quran was actually put together in North Arabia and Jordan, then such references make much more sense, as it is more likely that a North Arabian audience would have known about them. But if the Quran was not compiled in Mecca, then the holy city was not Mecca. Next, Quran 37 verses 133 to 138 says that the audience passed by Sodom morning and night. But Sodom was located near the Dead Sea. Sodom is more than 1,200 kilometers north of Mecca. So how could people from Mecca pass by Sodom day and night? This means that the audience of the Quran was most likely north of Mecca, such as Jordan or North Arabia. Therefore, the holy city was most likely north in Jordan and North Arabia. The Standard Islamic narrative claims that pagan idols were worshipped at Mecca before Islam. It claims that Mecca had a holy house or Kaaba and was near Mount Sinai and had figs and olives. The Sindh also claims that the pagan god Dushara was worshipped at the holy city. But the evidence shows that a location near Mount Sinai with figs and olives is much more consistent with North Arabia and Jordan than the current Kaaba in Saudi Arabia. And Dushara was worshipped at Petra in Jordan. There is no archaeological evidence for idol worship at Mecca. So it's much more likely that the holy city was north, such as Jordan and North Arabia, not Mecca. Are you beginning to notice the theme? Yes, north. Abraham and the holy city. The Quran says that Abraham went to the holy city with Hagar and Ishmael and destroyed the Kaaba. That's chapter 2 verses 125 to 127 and chapter 3 verses 95 to 96. Please note that it refers to the city. Mecca is not actually named. The Hadith of Al-Bukhari, volume 4, Hadith 583, says that Abraham took Hagar to a valley beside the Kaaba where he let her go. But the Bible says that Abraham let Hagar go between Kadesh and Bired. That's in Genesis 16 verses 13 to 14. And these are more than 1,000 kilometers north of Mecca. So why would Abraham go more than 1,000 kilometers to the south simply to put Hagar away, then go more than 1,000 kilometers back north to live? It makes no sense. Ishmael and the Holy City. The Bible in Genesis 20 says that Ishmael grew up in Paran, and in Genesis 21 says that Hagar took a wife for him from Egypt. See the map for these locations. So why would Ishmael go more than 1,000 kilometers south to Mecca, then go another 1,000 kilometers back north to live in Paran? And why would Hagar go 1,500 kilometers west to look for a wife for Ishmael in Egypt? Where the Bible places her, that is in Beersheba, was much closer to Egypt than the Hijaz or Mecca was. Therefore, it is highly unlikely that these events took place at Mecca in Saudi Arabia. It's much more likely that took place much further north. There's the theme again. North. Torpedo 4 scores a direct hit. Let's look at what the scholars say. Nikolai Sinai, in The Quran, A Historical Critical Introduction 2017, concludes that the foreign terms reveal that the Quranic corpus at some point and in some fashion had profound linguistic contact with the Fertile Crescent. Now, the Fertile Crescent is the area of Jordan, Israel, Syria, and Mesopotamia. This does not include Mecca. Stephen Shoemaker, in Creating the Quran 2022, says, quote, "The Quran therefore developed within a context that was permeated with the languages and cultures of Judeo-Christian Syro-Palestine and Mesopotamia. Is this a good fit with Mecca and Yathrib in the early 7th century? Not so much, it would seem, at least judging from the evidence that is presently available. Indeed, a great deal hinges on the presence of a sizable and vibrant Christian community in the Quran's immediate milieu. In the absence of a strong Christian presence, we really must find another home for much of the Quran's content." And French scholar Guillaume D., in Le Corpus Coranique, Contexte et Composition, 2019, notes that the Quran's Christian content is effectively incomprehensible in Mecca and Yathrib, without the presence of a large and highly literate Christian community, such as we find in Syro-Palestine and Mesopotamia, something along the order of Edessa, Nisibis, or Antioch. So in conclusion, critical analysis of the Quran, not filtered by the standard Islamic narrative, supports it being composed in Jordan and North Arabia, not Mecca. There's that theme again, north. So scholars confirm that Torpedo 4 scores a direct hit.